You mentioned there that you got married, but unfortunately you were widowed a few years later, and you worked for a charity called Widowed and Young. I just wondered if that was kind of something that's influenced your politics, I suppose, and is that something that you want to pursue now you're in Parliament?
I don't think you can go through something like that and not have it influence absolutely everything about your life. I mean, we'd only been married 4 years. Our baby was 5 months old. Our toddler was 2, nearly 3. It was just before her 3rd birthday when Nick was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and he died a year later. So
he'd been a reporter as well. Is that how you met?
Yeah, we'd met at Reuters. And so Laura was 17 months old. Ellie was literally just about to be 4. It rocks your world. It's just, it's undescribable, really. And, it's kind of a long story, but that's in the end, that's what led me to come and live in Devon. So I funnily enough, sort of through the Just Giving work, I had discovered Widowed and Young before I ever thought I was going to be in that category. Right. And then Nick became ill. And then I thought, oh yeah, I saw that charity and I kind of looked them up. So I knew all about them. And, so I joined fairly soon after Nick died. And it sounds like a really weird thing to do, to sort of want to hang out with other widows. My normal friends couldn't quite understand it and kept saying, why do you want to spend all your time with widows? It sounds so depressing. But the funny thing was that we were the only people that really understood what it was like. And we had the humour was huge because we were the only people who could kind of find humour in it, really. And I made really, really good friends who I am still friendly with now. And we used to go on holiday together and go away for weekends and stuff. And it was hugely supportive. It was massive. And because I'm the kind of person who can't say no to anything, I ended up chairing the organisation for a good couple of years. I think it has influenced me in many, many ways. I mean, for 9 years, I was a single parent, at a time when the Daily Mail were really hating on single parents and we were the root of all evil. And, their vision of a single parent was not what I was. And I felt really strongly about that and really angry about it. And my kids have been impacted by being bereaved as children.
Yeah, of course.
There are mental health issues. There's all sorts of stuff, and it keeps coming back. It doesn't just go away. You become a teenager, it comes back. You become an adult, it comes back. So I'm really aware of the long-term impact that something like that happens on a family. The financial impact. So I had a choice to make about, was I going to work part-time and be around in school holidays and earn next to nothing, or was I going to go back to a big journalism job with a big salary and then pay huge eye-watering amounts of money to have my children looked after all the time because I wouldn't be there. And, so it's, yes, it will influence the way I am a politician. And I have actually been asked if I want to join an APPG, a new all-party group on bereavement. And I'm mulling that at the moment. I mean, it's a world I'm not sure I want to dive completely back into for obvious reasons. But
yeah, of course.
I've got massive personal experience of something really difficult, and I think I have to use that experience.
Yeah, I saw you wrote a book as well. I think about how to help someone who's been bereaved. Do you think that there's kind of, you talked there about the different ways it can impact on mental health and childcare policies and childcare costs and all that kind of stuff? Do you think there is an understanding of the kind of the breadth of what happens when you're bereaved and how to help with that, and also kind of from the state, there's kind of support for people who've been bereaved and the kind of the ongoing support they require?
Well, the easy answer to that is to say that nobody can understand what it's like until you've been through it.
No, absolutely.
You just can't. But I mean, just one little example of sort of policy implications is I had something called widowed parents allowance, which I got because my husband had worked and paid tax and paid national insurance for quite a long time and was never going to get an old age pension from the state. So therefore, I was eligible for an allowance after he died, which they paid until, I was very lucky. They paid it until my kids left school. And the Conservative government just got rid of it. And there is now a sort of one-off payment. And I think 18 months support or something. I may have not got that figure right, but sort of short-term support. Now, Now, that money that I was given by the state meant that I could work part-time.
Right.
And it meant that I was there as much as I could be for my kids who had already lost one parent. And I think, I know there's no money and I know everything has to be cut and we're in an awful place. But we've also got a lot of stuff going on in this country around mental health. We've got a lot of children in crisis. Support services are not there. Social services are not there. If we can help parents at the hardest time in their life be able to support their children by giving them a little bit of support.
Yeah.
I think it's the ripple effects of that are huge. It allows that parent to carry on working, but maybe cut their hours down. It allows them to have a little bit of balance in their life. It allows them to be there to support their kids. And, I do wonder if sometimes the sort of wider implications of these policies are thought through, because yes, it's a cost, but probably in the long term, it's saving money rather than costing money.
Yeah.
So I suppose going back to your previous question, I have to speak up for things like that because,
yeah, absolutely.
I know what a difference it makes.
Yeah, and that's when people talk about having a breadth of experience in politics, no one would want to have that experience, but it is interesting to have people like you who have been through different things, aren't just, no shade on former special advisors, but just having loads of former special advisors and stuff as MPs, it is kind of useful to kind of have that. But you're right that thing about the cost there is a conversation I've had with lots of MPs about childcare. It more generally, that actually spending money on offering people free childcare is actually much better for the economy in the long term, because it allows both parents to work, and that's a lot much better for overall. It's money that's spent that actually you can see it being recouped twice, 3 times over. And obviously, you say it's not just the cost value, but it's also the value to the children who've been impacted.
Yeah, and I think we need to support parents. I really, we need to do so much more to support parents, young parents, new parents, parents who are struggling, parents who, maybe for no fault of their own become a single parent. And the fact that children's centres and Sure Start centres and all that kind of stuff has just gone. There's no parenting support. There's no help. That, new mums don't get district nurses coming round, midwives coming round, for a few weeks afterwards just to check in on them, all of that stuff. And I think it can be a really lonely, difficult experience. And if you get off on the wrong foot, or if you don't know how to do it, if you've been poorly parented yourself, you kind of need someone to show you how to be a good parent.
No, I've got a 2-year-old, and I was kind of surprised by how good the care was before he was born as opposed to afterwards. We did have some good care, but after a few weeks, it's kind of like, right, it's kind of over to you. And, we're kind of, both intelligent people, but even still, there's so much stuff to navigate. And it really doesn't feel as though, unless there's a major problem, like a health issue or that kind of stuff, there isn't really much support. You kind of just on your own to just crack on. And I think that kind of wraparound care, Andrea Leadsom, I've had on this podcast a few times, it's been one of her big things, is having that kind of like that support that doesn't just, basically, that's like before you're born and then it stops. And then it comes again when you're sort of like 4 or 5 when you go to school, and that kind of gap needs to be filled.
Don't we, that those first 4 or 5 years are absolutely crucial. And if you don't, I'm not saying if you don't get it right, it's lost forever. But your input as a parent in those 4 years, I mean, even simple things like reading to your child, just reading books to your child regularly can make a massive difference to their attainment at school. There's probably lots of parents who don't know that because they weren't read to as a child. And reading to your children every night at bedtime can be seen as a very middle class kind of thing, but actually it's not a difficult thing. And it's, so I think we really need to do more around that. I feel that's really important.